Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, September 6, 2022. The time is 9 a.m. We have a really large agenda today, and we'll try to get through it as efficiently, as effectively as possible. And if we can all stay on the topic as best we can, I know there's some ancillary discussions that will probably come along, but if we can move it forward to get this done, that'd be great. Let's go to. We have a full agenda. We have everybody present on the elected body. Thanks for everybody in the audience for coming, and those who are listening at home. I'm going to turn the committee meeting over to our City Administrator, Britt C. Bennis. And just a note that item number 2 under appearances, Mr. Wedge will not be coming today. He still has some more information to prepare for the staff and the elected body. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is Marvin Hill, American Legion, to discuss the use of 4 parking spots in the adjacent city-owned vacant lot.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, did you want to address the council, or did you want me to give the information you provided to me? You're welcome to come and appear. Would you like to come and speak? Yeah, please. Thank you, Mr. Hill. And would you please turn the green light on? And state your name for the record, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting. There you go.
Good morning. Greetings, Mr. Mayor, councilors all. My name is D. Marvin Hill. I'm representing the American Legion Post 239 here at Virginia. The American Legion owns the Servicemen's Club and runs the business. As a result of a presentation at the last council meeting by the business at 215 Chestnut Street, having concerns about parking of their employees and the owner of the building in the vacant lot adjacent to the Servicemen's Club. We also have had a meeting with the owner of the Sugar Shack concerned about their employee parking and also the owner's parking, hoping to have availability in the adjacent lot to the Servicemen's Club. At the last council meeting, you had before you a lease agreement which was put together, and we thank this committee for putting the language together for that lease agreement for the American Legion. We did sign it. We went ahead with our underwriter and took insurance on the lot. As a result of your vote at the council meeting to table and refer it back to this meeting today, committee as a whole, we at the American Legion held discussion and a meeting, and I am here to inform you that we are not going forward with the lease agreement. Our wishes are to the council for permission to post 4 parking spots on our building in the vacant lot for our employees and volunteer help, starting from the sidewalk end. My request for this is our business opens at 12 noon. That lot is full by the time our employees get there at 11 o'clock. There is no space to park. To make you familiar with our building property encompasses 2 city lots. We're at 225 and 227 Chestnut Street. The front of our property borders the city sidewalk. The rear of our building borders the edge of the alleyway. We have no parking at the rear of our facility. And this is the reason that I come to you hoping that we can reach some agreement. We are hoping to get permission or work out an agreement for 4 parking signs in the vacant lot on our building, starting from the sidewalk. Do I have any questions from the council?
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Appreciate you very much for coming today. Thank you with respect to the meeting and the discussions we had earlier about that. So we'll move to the council for additional information or comments. First, Councilor Bearable, and then over to Councilor Paulson.
Marv, what was the rationale why you decided not to move forward with the lease agreement that we had put together? What was your board's rationale with that? Technically, that lot can't be a parking lot anyway with our ordinances because it has to be paved. It's not a paved lot, it's a gravel lot. We do not have the dollar bills to pave that lot at this point in time. I have no objection to what your lease said for that lot because you're going to be putting other entity things in there like food booths, other things. Those cars are in the way if these people keep parking. The solution is to dump that, basically the permitting on that lot behind, so there's plenty of room behind for people to park that own those businesses. If we dump the permits, they don't want to pay for the permits. That's the bottom line. I'm disappointed that you decided to pull the lease that we had come up with. I feel that you guys are going to use that lot. Nobody else is except for parking. That's a convenience for the business owners. If we remove the, like I said, the parking requirement for permits and stuff, or hourly parking back there, or 2-hour parking, that solves the problem for parking all over back behind those buildings. I'm an advocate that we dump all the permits on all the lots in Virginia. That's my philosophy as chairman of Street and Alleys, and we're going to have a meeting about that. So I wish you wouldn't pull back that lease agreement we had agreed to with our attorney. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson, and then over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So when we had first had some of the conversation regarding the lease agreement, I thought my understanding was that it was mainly to have events and to be able to have picnic tables and food out there. But now it sounds like what this is turning into is more of a parking issue. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, our neighbors are looking to retain parking there. The business owner at Chestnut Street 215 that you heard the presentation at the council meeting, and the owner of the Sugar Shack is very concerned about parking for his employees and the owner. Maybe the city, maybe we need to take a look at abolishing the 2-hour parking in the city parking lot across the alley. That way the business people that are working on the main street wouldn't have to rush in on a gravel surface parking area. They could be on bituminous.
And I think that's a great suggestion going forward. I do want to point out, though, in the lease agreement that was put forward, it does state parking in there. So I'm confused as to if you can or cannot park in there because the lease that was drafted stated parking. So could I get that confirmed or clarified?
Yes, and I think one of the reasons for that purpose, to allow them to park some of their staff in there, was pointed out that Parking wasn't the primary issue. I think they were going to put some parking spots in the back. But as a result of the concerns by the other business owners not be able to park in that lot either, they didn't want it, they wanted to park in there as well. And so as the lots are completely full, and at your Legion meeting, it was determined that you wanted to be good neighbors, that you felt that, in the event that they need to put some tables out there like they did before, they were just looking for some spots to park, and having to pay $20 a month for their, and have everybody else pay that same amount of money. That parking lot was convenient after discussions with the business owners, and if you want to just chime in there, Marv, or Mr. Hill, that was the reason why they decided they want to be good neighbors. Forget about that. They'll continue to try to put make their hamburgers and hot dogs during the current events and work something out with everybody like they did before. They just wanted to be good neighbors and not create any controversy with the other business owners.
Sure, and I understand that, and I really appreciate that. I mean, I think we can come to some kind of a solution. My question is why the lease was originally written or drafted with that parking language in there if it is actually not legal to park on gravel, because it was in there.
That was their request. Their letter to us stated they wanted to use it for events and for parking.
But in the actual lease agreement, it states also the other use of
Be
that.
responsible for any improvements that would be required by city code is also in that agreement.
So can the city legally say in a lease that it can be utilized for parking?
You have to bring it up to city code. Yes.
Mayor, if I may.
Please, Brian.
And that was my understanding of the language as well, was that the activity of parking would be allowed, but if they were going to engage in that activity of parking, they would have to bring it up to the appropriate standard at their own cost.
Okay, and then I guess that was just I just wanted to clarify that with the lease agreement that was put forward. Then my next, I guess I would agree with abolishing the 2-hour parking behind there. But if this space is not being utilized, how much could we go out for a bid estimate? When Wasabi Bituminous just did that street, it wasn't that expensive by Super One South. So is that something that we could in fact look into for additional parking and/or activity from the American Legion, from the Servicemen's Club?
And I think that's an issue we could discuss later on about at Building and Grounds, about removing those and coming back to the council, or do we do this in a committee of the whole meeting, and how we make those changes. Mr. Hill has indicated, according to the American Legion, they no longer want to have the lease agreement, no matter what the case may be, and they were looking for some other alternatives to accommodate parking for the 4 members of the Legion that work there, and by actions going to be taken or suggested to be taken may alleviate the concerns and satisfy their need for the parking spots as requested.
Thank you, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. It was my understanding that the whole discussion was going to come back either to this, which I see it's on, but we were also want to have the other businesses present. And I think that's what we need to be doing, is having that discussion with everybody there. The vote was 5 with 2 abstentions, or whatever it was, but there were 2 abstentions on that discussion. And this seems to tie into that discussion too, so I'm a little confused. I appreciate you coming forward and asking, but I don't think that it's fair that we have one ask and then we wait for another and another. I think we told the gentleman from the business we would have this discussion as a group and everybody could be present at the same time. And I think that's how we need to move forward, is have that discussion with everybody present specifically about that lot. And I've been a proponent of having the bigger downtown parking discussion for a long time anyway. We were going to do a parking study and it got put off because of the county building being built. And then it got put off because of COVID. So we still need to have that discussion about parking and the reality of what downtown Virginia looks like and what the needs are. I can tell you that on a Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock, there's not enough parking around to get into the county building. So there is still a problem. And I really want to look at how do we make that. And I don't know why we have a whole lot of 2-hour parking peripheral. That doesn't make sense to me. I think we need to get some more input from our business owners as with you, and we need to have that discussion as a group together and not, you're first in line. But again, you still couldn't, even if we allowed you to put signs up on your building, which you can do, the lot is not a viable lot at this time. It would need to be parked. And that also brings up the question is, do we need to be barricading that lot so nobody's parking there until this is solved? Because I think that would give us a little bit of motivation to solve the problem quicker than later, because as soon as winter comes, nothing's going to happen there. And if this is a problem we need to solve sooner than that, I would like to see that done before the snow flies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So thanks for coming in, Mr. Hill. We're going to be reviewing this, and we got ahead of the game a little bit on this agenda, because item number 14 under Building and Grounds, it was meant for the discussion for this particular thing.
Sure.
So when we get down to that, we'll probably make a motion how we're moving forward under number 14. But thank you for coming in. Your decision as, regardless of the votes that we take, your decision is to rescind the agreement for the lease and then look for us to consider alternative parking opportunities for your Legion and the other business owners downtown. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill, for coming in. Anybody else have any questions or comments before we move?
On behalf of the American Legion and the Servicemen's Club, I want to thank you for giving up your time to listen to our concerns. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Okay, Eric Wedge won't be here today.
Would you like to move item number 14 up, since we're having that discussion?
I'm sorry, Britt?
Would you like to move item number 14 to the top of the agenda, since we're having that discussion?
Well, we might as well. We've had the majority of it already. So let's move Building Grounds up to review the downtown parking in Virginia. I'll carry over from the 8/23/22 council meeting, and we've had a lot of suggestions. So looking for a motion to move staff to prepare have a meeting or something with whoever's available or whoever's affected by this, and as suggested by other staff members. But here's number 14, looking for council questions, comments, requests for action. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and fellow councilors, I'm going to move that we put together the downtown parking study that we've talked about through streets and alleys, since we did that one other time. And we have maps already of the different areas and what they are. And I believe, Brett, we can resurrect those maps.
Packet, the map from 2019 is in your packet.
I guess
the
I
parking.
didn't read all that, so.
That's
But we
in
do
there.
have it already, so we just have to set a date, and I believe we can let the staff set up a date once they talk to us. And that, we can either have as a committee of the whole, or we can have it as a committee meeting, whichever the council prefers. Thank you. That's my motion, either way.
So repeat your motion once again
To put together a downtown parking study, either with street and alley or the full committee of the whole of the council. Either
Okay.
way.
Okay, support for that? Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Further discussion, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just trying to get to the page here for that. Where I'm on page 103, if anybody's looking for it. Looking at parking and how it exists, I'm curious to know how we got to this part. Has this just been a hodgepodge of we need 2 here, we need a 10-minute here? How did we get to what we currently have with 8 different colors, 8 different regulations?
We did, Steve, can I tell them how we got there? We did overheads, we did traffic movements, we did all this stuff before we put this together, Steve. Bill Cole knows how we did that, and so did Mr. Hennis. We did actual overheads of how the traffic moved per hour, et cetera. So that's how you got the different numbers of the different places to park based on the amount of traffic throughout the day that was flowing on all these streets in downtown Virginia and around downtown Virginia. So it wasn't done randomly, absolutely not.
And then I really do want to make sure we have input from downtown businesses as to, is 2-hour parking what we need? Downtown is not as retail as it was, and Britt, do you know how many permits we sell a month?
Don't have that off the top of my
Okay.
head, but I can get that information.
I'm just curious to know how much, are we generating enough revenue from the permits to actually cover doing the permits and that kind of stuff? So I think that as this goes to committee, making sure we specifically get representation from downtown, the businesses that are located close, folks that have had frustrations with parking in the past, so that we can have a conversation about what they want instead of what I think they need. I want to listen to them to see what we can do to help improve downtown. Thank you.
And I think that's the purpose of the motion, to put that together, have staff input, committee input, and the people who are affected by it, have the business owners have the input as well. So I have never been a proponent of permit parking, but I was the lone, I think, person who didn't want that. And so I think the 2-hour parking is excessive. So as the motion is, we have a motion in a second to move forward with the discussion of how we change and make some recommendations either at committee level or committee of the whole with respect to this. So I'll leave it up to staff to determine if it should be a committee meeting or not. It is going to be a long discussion with input from the general public. So thanks to everybody. So it has been moved and supported to set a meeting to accomplish a review of the parking in the downtown area, including the 2-hour parking. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to, also some of the, excuse me, some of the concerns from the business owners that were here was winter takes up a lot of those spaces with the way that we plow snow behind 215 Chestnut Street. So I'm hoping, is this something that we could formulate a plan after we get all the information and input this, or put it into place prior to winter?
I believe this would be part of the discussion. I would assume, and I think we all would hope, that we'd have something accomplished before the snow flies.
Okay, and then on this map from 2019, and when I'm looking at the legend, all the things highlighted in red, it says private business. But when I look at it a little closer, specifically kind of by, I guess, north of Wells Fargo in the daycare parking, it looks like that's outlined in red. And I always thought that was also public. So I don't know if this needs to, if this map, it says it's from 2019, but I'm also noticing there's a red, I believe it looks like it's 215 Chestnut Street, also highlighted, which would be, on the legend, it says private business. So I don't know if it needs to.
At that time, it was privately owned.
Then I would say that this would be something we would be looking to update.
Yeah, I think the entire map, the whole system, how the parking is done, will all be inclusive in that meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. When you look at this map on the 300 block, where the foundation is and where I had my business, there was a parking lot with signs marked private parking that was not paved or maintained. So I just want to draw that to your attention, and that was drawn up before I went into business. But I want to remind everybody that lingers with everybody around that. I came to the council for years about that. Is it a parking lot? Is it not? It's not on the map, but that very much is a parking lot that is unpaved. So I would like to see all of this updated to show the properties that are city-owned and what they're utilized for.
Thank you, and that would all be part of the discussion in the motion about completely take a look at all aspects of parking downtown and what can and can't be done. So look forward to the committee having that study and coming forward with a recommendation for everyone. Any further discussion, Councilor Johnson?
Councilor Paulson, I can very directly answer that question. From the corner of the Apple Tree Building out to the street, it's a diagonal that belongs to Apple Tree. The rest of that parking lot has been discussed since I was at Apple Tree. Had the property been Apple Tree property, we would have been able to get state and federal funding to repair it because it wasn't. So I know that. So it's whether or not the union owns it and what part falls into the city. But yeah, you're correct. This map is not accurate. So and because I noticed that the new county, obviously the new county parking's not on there, and some other stuff like that, and then. Again, the stuff around the school is all going to change too, but I think we can focus on the areas around Chestnut Street as we're moving forward for the businesses down there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approved professional services agreement with SEH for Silver Lake, and this actually should be called the Silver Lake Trail Connection.
Thank you, and we have Matt Reed in the audience. Come forward.
And on your desk, there are maps.
I'm sorry?
There are maps for this project on your desk.
Yes, thank you. And Matt, once again, before you get started, thanks for addressing all those other issues by the business owners with respect to Third Avenue. I know there's a lot of things going on, so thank you for the late night calls and things of that nature. So welcome.
You're welcome. Good morning.
Morning.
So just a quick recap. About a year ago, I think it was now, Britt applied for some more LCCMR money. That's been an annual application to try to keep the Bailey Lake, Silver Lake Trail, and probably more trails beyond that at some point when we finish the other ones going. So the latest application that was submitted was to connect Silver Lake Trail up by Lakeside Park down to the new ITMEC facility and ultimately over to 12th Avenue West. So what I included here for reference, just in case people didn't remember, or maybe you've not seen this, I don't know. But this is an exhibit that we had put together for the LCCMR application, and it's double-sided. But this is the proposed, there used to be a trail back there, if you guys remember, when the old arena, when
Right.
football field were there.
Yep.
But to try to get this connection made over to 12th again and into the Pine Mill Court area. And then on the backside, it just shows some of the improvements that would be made along 9th Avenue. And it involves widening sidewalks, and actually what we're gonna do probably, instead of widening the sidewalk, we're gonna take the sidewalk out, pave it, make it blacktop instead of concrete, and define it as an actual trail. So we do have the grant agreement in place for $727,000, is that right, Britt? So it's not as much as we originally applied for. Part of the application did include some additional lighting, the lighting that we weren't able to finish on Bailey Lake Trail, and also some additional lighting on the north side of Silver Lake Trail. But the money did not come through in full. It cut about $400,000 if I remember right. So we got $727,000 anyway, which should be enough to at least get the trail down to the ITMEC. And I think, I'm crossing my fingers, if bid prices stay in check and maybe go down a little bit for next season, maybe we can even get the trail built across to 12th Avenue. So the agreement that I have in front of you today is we're gonna design the whole thing, and once we get it all put together, we can formulate a cost estimate and see where we're at. And if nothing else, we can maximize the amount of money that we have available. We can try to do some bid alternates if we need to see how far we can get. But my hope is we can actually get the trail itself built. We just won't have the lighting and amenities along with it. So if anybody has any questions, I can certainly answer them or try to answer them for you.
Okay, before we go to Councilor Johnson, I just want to say that, Britt and I went down originally and testified on LCCMR for some grants, and sometimes it's a perpetual allocation of funds until you complete your project. So as we're looking, they know that the overall picture is what we need to be done. And historically, when you're asking for a specific amount of money, normally the LCCMR will make a little adjustment downward in anticipation that see what's completed, and then you come back next year for some additional funding. So I anticipate that will occur next year, hopefully. So thank you for that. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. What is the feasibility and the cost when we, as opposed to running conduit and electricity for future lights, about starting to install the solar lights that self-charge? And are we at a point yet where they're realistic in the wintertime?
That's the biggest problem, is the wintertime around here is the lack of sunlight tends to, I mean, you don't need direct sunlight all the time to run those things, but to ensure that they're on when you want them on, I don't know that we're quite there on solar yet.
Do they have a hybrid version yet where during the summer they would not need the electricity?
That is something that we could look into for sure.
Because I want to make sure as we're doing this, we would put in that conduit during the dig up phase, because
Yep.
I really appreciate all the work Britt and you and the staff have done on creating these paths. This is why people move in here, for the quality of life, to be able to bike or hike across town without having to worry about roads, except for maybe crossing a couple. So this is really forward thinking, and I appreciate all the work. And just to keep moving along, I'll make a motion to accept the agreement for professional services with SEH on this project.
Okay, moved by Councilor Johnson to approve entering the agreement for lobbying, enter a professional service agreement with Short Elliott Hendrickson for the Silver Lake Trail Phase 3. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing Councilor Baraboo.
Matt, you have an estimate, because I didn't see anything in the agreement, unless I just missed it, of cost to you folks? Is that a separate agreement coming up? Or are you going to do this pro bono to design? I didn't see any place, unless I just missed it, the cost of this agreement. Where is it?
Oh, it's in there. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
misunderstood you.
Where the heck is it? I can't
Right here,
find it.
52,000.
Where is it on the computer? I didn't see it.
Page 2 of the agreement for professional services towards the bottom.
Page 3 of your agenda packet.
In the amount of $52,000. And that's for the professional service agreement, not for the work itself,
Right.
for the design and, for the Phase 3 put together.
Oh, I see it there. Okay, never mind. It was kind of hiding on me. Okay, thanks.
Okay, moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Is there anything else for Matt on the agenda today? A shocker.
No.
Thanks, Matt.
Easy one on Matt today.
Get back to business now. Okay, thank you.
Item number 3 is approve entering into an agreement for lobbying services with Jarek and Associates for 2022-2023.
You can see in your packet, it's for the same services that they provide. This is the cost anyway, at $3,000 a month for the next fiscal year.
Mayor, I'm going to so move that we continue our association with Jarek and Associates for our lobbying services for the city.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Baraboo to approve entering into agreement for lobbying services with Jarek and Associates for the 2022-2023 session at an amount of $3,000 per month, which is the same as it has been since the beginning of the contract. Is there support?
All support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Freely for discussion. And further discussion, Councilor Freely.
Sherry, is this an annually budgeted item? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I just maybe want to ask John Sullivan, has the communication and relationship been good with you between Jarek and Associates with communicating any needs that you have from your department?
Councilor Paulson, it has. They've been very responsive.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Further discussion, Counselor Johnson.
Thank you. What is going to be our priority as we look forward to next year? I think that's something that we should be, as if we're going to have a contract with them, what are we going to have them doing? And make sure that's out there. So we're all on the same page. And Britt, would you have a suggestion?
Yep, we do have legislation still out there for our public safety center and the debt limit that we want to, the one time exceed our debt limit. They have already done a lot of the work. It is in the tax bill, which didn't get approved. So we do need them to make sure it's continued in the tax bill for next session, and that hopefully try to get the legislature to approve a tax bill.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Johnson. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries, thank you.
Item number 5 is approve the payment for the 2023 Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities dues and the 2023 voluntary assessment.
We'll move both of them to the next meeting for formal approval.
Counselor Johnson moves to approve the payment of the 2023 CGMC dues and the voluntary assessment. Is there support?
I'll support for further discussion, Mayor.
Support for further discussion. Further discussion, since you made the second, Counselor Bearbrou, then over to Counselor
Yeah,
Paulson.
I need to take a look at the dollars from this past year versus what they're charging now, because our population is down to 8,200 and something with the last stuff that came from the federal government. So it's not 8,712, and they're doing this by per capita. So I want to see, what the differential is, and if they're charging us at the old 8,712 instead of the new census that we just got. And we're down to 82 something in Virginia, Minnesota right now. That's the new census that I have seen. So I wouldn't want that for the meeting, the next full council meeting to approve this. I want to see the
Okay.
differential, okay?
Okay, so there's a move and a second to move it to the council meeting with some additional information being requested by Council Bearbrou with respect to the costs associated as it related to our population census. Further discussion, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to get some clarification on the, on page 9. It says, payment may be made from your 2022 or 2023 budgets, but payment should be made by February 1st, 2023. About 11% of your general assessment is used for annexation and environmental programs, environment programs, which some cities pay out of their utility funds because of the direct impact of these issues on their sewer and water service. So my question is, do we have a utility fund, and should we be taking these in two separate motions if we decide that that 11% should come out of that utility fund? And it's under $1,600, but I'm just curious about that.
Brian, I think we could take this in one motion, can we not? Or do we have to separate them out?
I think we could do it in one motion, so long as the contingency is expressly made part of the motion. So if we make it clear that what we'd be doing is authorizing the expenditure, and we could, the motion could be phrased that the expenditure is authorized out of the appropriate accounts.
Does that satisfy?
Yeah, and then my question though is, how much do we have in our utility fund? And do we normally pay out of that fund in this manner? I don't know that I've ever seen this kind of request come forward that they're specifying where a lot of this money or research is going to go into.
Yeah, some cities have separate utility funds and some do not. Sherry?
That's correct. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Councilor Paulson, we normally put this under dues and subscriptions under our miscellaneous account in there. Yes, we have water and we have the sewer section in our enterprise, but we've normally taken it out of the general fund.
Okay, so it would come out of our dues and subscriptions portion then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. My motion was just to move it both together, because at the regular meeting, I'm guessing they have to be separate because of them being separate bills, basically. So that's why my motion was just to move both of them to the formal meeting.
Sure. Thank you. It has been moved and supported. Move it to the city council for further discussion and final approval. In motions as designated and legally required under the law. Is there further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 6 is approve entering into an agreement with ProCare Services for maintenance of the power load cots for the ambulance service.
Okay, we have Chief Frederickson here. Could you give us a little tutorial on what this means for your ambulance service?
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chief.
Our training chief, Tiffany, apologizes. She was hoping to be here today. She could speak a little in more detail on these items. Essentially, these two quotes, and we're hoping for the second one of the two. What they do is they insure, they inspect, they maintain some of our most costly EMS equipment, from our power load cots that lift up the patients and into the ambulance, secures the patients in the ambulance, which is obviously an OSHA deal, pretty big deal. If those go out of service for any reason, that ambulance is out of service. In addition to that, which the second quote contains, is our Lucas devices, and those are CPR machines. If a patient needs CPR, they will do the compressions at the American Heart Association level in compliance. Perfect compressions every time. And that frees up a paramedic or an EMT to do all the other skills too. It's like having a third partner when staffing doesn't allow, or distance, or what have you. So that's new, and that's on that second quote. Also, we have what we call stair chairs. It's essentially a folding chair with a lot of handles. It has wheels. It has a ramp. We can get people upstairs out of basements. We can get them down more safely, and hopefully limiting injuries in doing those dangerous maneuvers. So all that equipment added up is over $300,000 brand new. That second of the two would be, I believe that page 2 there shows $21,000 per year to maintain all of that.
So my question to you, Chief, is that, first of all, have you ever had this service before?
Yes.
Okay, and is with the same company?
Stryker, yes.
Very good, thank you very much. Looking for council questions, comments, and actions regarding item number 6 on the agenda. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, I had taken a look at this. So what is the actual new cost on this, Mr. Frederickson?
New cost of the equipment?
The Stryker stuff that you said there was a new cost to this.
Yeah, this is
How
just
much is the new cost?
new cost of all of those items for all of the ambulances in excess of $300,000.
That's more than we had in the past? What was it in the past?
It was roughly the same. Those
Well, you're not answering my question.
Okay.
Okay. What was the cost last year for the Stryker services? Or this year?
You talk about the services that you're asking for, the $21,000 you quoted earlier.
Yep, I don't have that in front of me. I would have to look into that. This one's slightly higher because that quote 2 has the maintenance for those CPR devices.
We have been paying this in the past.
So that one is new to us. We have not had that in the past.
So it's not going to increase our deficit in your department then by except the $20-some thousand then, correct?
Correct. I'm more afraid if we don't have this and one of those old machines goes out of service, that's going to be a much larger cost.
So you can't put a regular ambulance gurney in an ambulance unless you have this motorized thing in an emergency?
What they do
There's
is...
no way to hook those up like you did?
Correct.
Hand
we
feed them in?
If I follow you correctly, when we get a new ambulance, we choose the route of this
Yeah,
particular
I understand that.
cot. So
But in
yes,
an emergency, if you have one going, you don't have a replacement, so
Correct.
is the ambulance
ambulance out of
service?
service, correct.
You can't put an old one in there?
Correct, yeah.
Can't hook them up at all, like you did the old ambulances?
Well,
I'm serious.
I
I'm
know you are,
serious
but
on
no,
this, Because if you go down, if you have 2 of them going at the same time, you're down to 4
we do not have
ambulances.
spare ambulances due to cost.
Well, you have-
Spare cots. We do not.
Doesn't make sense to me to not have something, if you have an emergency and you put an ambulance out of service, we're coming up short enough now on revenue from ambulances with the whole system. Doesn't make sense to me. What do one of those cots like that cost approximately?
$25,000 is the whole setup. Again, accounting for the restraining system, the locking mechanism
Yeah,
in
I
the
understand
ambulance.
that.
But in Stryker's defense, they're usually.
And they're interchangeable from every ambulance.
That is
Yeah.
correct, yes.
Okay.
So we can move them around. But they're usually up within 24 hours of us notifying that there's an issue.
So you get it repaired within 24 then?
They're
usually?
usually really good with that, yes.
All right.
Thank you. Pam, do you have any clarification that you'd like to make? I think there's something else to add.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We approved this in 2019, and the cost was $36,571 over the 3 years.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Okay, so it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a little confused as to these quotes and the figures. It seems there's $51,259.50, and that's the quote that doesn't have the Lucas equipment in there, is that correct?
Right.
And then the next one is $63,425.70 including the Lucas equipment. And so what is the 300 and some thousand you're saying?
All of those, if we just look at that one, all four of those, everything Stryker covers. In each ambulance, it's that cot setup, there's that stair chair, and then these Lucas devices. If we were to add all those things up for each ambulance, all that equipment's worth in excess of $300,000.
And so.
That they're maintaining over the next 3 years.
Okay, I see. So
Yeah.
they're insuring
Yep.
that 300 and some thousand dollars of equipment for the amount of $63,000.
For 3
Will
years.
be, for 2 or 3?
3.
3 years,
Yep.
will be maintained and serviced.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bionich?
Thank you. And this was in the budget for 2022, 2023?
It would be 22.
And the money is there?
We're working on 23, so this would be for this year. I have 96,000 budgeted. I don't have a list of your capital for your equipment, but for this year. So does it fall in there?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I know that I don't have my big capital outlay, but I know the Lucas and the cots were discussed for 22. So as long as you know you have 96,000 in there.
Counselor Bionich?
Thank you. So that payment is spread out through the 3 years? And it's budgeted for in 3 years?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor Bionich. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Is there
you
anything
all.
else on the agenda?
To peruse that really quick too, myself.
Another one?
Thank you all. I'll stick around if there is.
Thanks, Chief.
Item number 7 is approve entering into an agreement with Oracle Cloud Services for support and maintenance of the point-of-sale software at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Do we currently have an agreement with Oracle?
When we bought the system, it came with a 1-year agreement. That 1 year is now up, and now this is the 5-year agreement to keep it in place.
With Oracle? Thank you. Looking for council questions, answers, concerns, motions. Counselor Johnson.
Mayor, Brian, is this service meeting our needs in this, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and you can do one answer. Is this also what we use to determine the 10% or our percentage of alcohol and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, this is the system that we use in our concession stands. It's also the system that right now we are selling tickets to Fun Pianos with, which is this Friday evening. If you don't have your tickets yet, go ahead and get them. Shameless plug right there. We also use it for taking payments for bump and skate and for those individuals that are coming in to use the bumper cars or just to skate. concession sales, and it is what our alcohol vendor, the Sawmill, uses to do all the transactions so that there is the double check of what they sold versus the revenue that we get from the revenue share.
And then, is this system compatible with selling the passes if and when we get the fitness center up and running, or is that a different
No,
system?
we will utilize Rec Desk.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson.
I will move the agreement with Oracle.
Okay, Counselor Johnson moves to approve the agreement with Oracle. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freely. For discussion, Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not finding a dollar amount, Brian,
Neither am I.
for this service.
I'm just doing a quick scan myself through the
It's not in
contract.
there. It's not in the packet.
We can get that for you for next Tuesday. I don't have it in the packet.
Okay, and then under the number 2, where it does state fees and payment, under 2.3, it says you understand that you may receive multiple invoices for the services ordered. Invoices will be submitted to you pursuant to Oracle's invoicing standards policy, which may be accessed at, and then they give a website. I guess I'd like to see a little bit more information on what we would be billed for, why we would be receiving multiple invoices for the services and what their services, it kind of outlines what they're doing, but in our packet, it says this is for cloud storage. So I'd like a little bit more clarification on that,
Okay?
if that's okay. And then I'd also like to know what type of reports are available to, for this, that this software can run. Because I had specifically asked, I don't know how long ago the meeting was, for basic profit and loss generation, reports generated. So I want to know if this software can generate those reports for us as well.
This one would not produce a profit loss because it is just tracking what we have sold, not what we have spent.
But is there a way to extrapolate that? There should be a way to extrapolate that information on a monthly basis, whether it's ticket sales or, you should be able to isolate what you've sold. I guess that's what I'm asking. And then either someone puts it into a spreadsheet or something else for that profit and loss type of reporting. So is that part of this where you can extrapolate information out of this software system?
Yes, we would be able to get that information out of the system, but I can't just hit a button and it calculates the employee cost, the cost of the
It'll
of
generate
everything.
your sales for XYZ event.
Correct.
Or your
Yes.
concession sales for
Yes,
a
and
month.
we can break it down by day, hour, even by register.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons why we are going to the 2 different concession stand models this year. We'll have more of the grab-and-go menu for during practice periods, and then the full-blown concession stand during games and when there are more people in the building to increase the profit margins.
Okay, so I think if you could just get that, the cost of that, and then just get the information, for me, what I'm looking for is just to understand why we might be receiving multiple invoices from that company and what that language looks like.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So we've been using this system for the last year. It's been working out very well. And so now the request is to enter into another agreement. We don't have the costs associated with that. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss those things, ask those questions, request additional information so we can make a final vote for approval with all the information necessary at the next council meeting. So it has been moved and supported and move that to the council meeting, and hopefully you'll have that information to answer all our questions at that meeting before we make a final vote for approval. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Bearable.
Brian, I have a quick question for you. The point of sale that you're using at the concession stands for this information, are they loaded with what you put in and what total amount you have for sale? Because it's a very simple thing to get the profit and loss out of that to see if it matches what you're going to pay for this service. Do you load if you get 2 cases of peanuts in there? Do you load those into the register, or are they not loaded, or you just have the sale of what?
We do have the capability to load in the amount of products
Do we do
in
it
there.
now?
We have not been, because we have not been putting in the cost of those products. We use the city's software for purchase orders for that.
So you don't load those in there. If you loaded them in that register, you would have an immediate one-button push to see the differential so you know what your profit is.
With
I
the
worked-
exception of staffing levels.
Well, yeah, staffing would have to be different, but I mean, the actual cost of your product, what your profitability is, if you load it. That's how all retail business does stuff, is load that stuff now. Load it off a computer tape. Or whatever, however they do it in the modern world now. So we don't have that capability unless we have somebody tasked to do that. That doesn't make sense to me. That's not modern. That is way behind the 8 ball in the old-fashioned way of doing stuff. We need to look at that. We need to really look at that, because I have not used a system that can't track when you sell out of your registers versus what the profitability is. Take a look at that, Brian, see if you can come up with something.
Can do.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Okay, it has been moved and supported to move it to the council meeting for a final vote, and for Brian to provide additional information regarding the questions that we've had here today. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, does Oracle provide any training for staff in order to be able to do what Councilor Bearable and I actually would recommend having done?
Yes,
So is it on-site or online?
online.
It's online. So technically, one of our employees could go through that training session. I know with my software inventory, I can get as technical as adding weights and measurements and stones or whatever I need to add, costs of those stones or products, and then it'll spit out every month in terms of what I've generated. But you do have to put it into the system
Yes.
in order for it to produce those reports. So I don't know if that could be gotten out of the purchase orders and then put in the system upon receipt of those products. And then you're basically, when you're selling an item, it's basically scanning it and taking it out of the inventory, generating your cost and profit at the same time. So if we could, I don't know if it states in here, if there's anything about, usually when you purchase a software, there's only a certain amount of time for training. So I don't know if that is something that's within this agreement, or if we've got a 3-year or what for training. And
We've actually had to call them and ask for additional training for several times due to staff turnover at our lead recreation position, and we've had no issues getting that additional training in the past.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported to move this to the council meeting for final approval based upon the information that's requested by council. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Item number 8 is a request for equipment purchases from the Public Works Department, and the first one is to request to approve the purchase of a trailer from RMS Supply in the amount of $25,675.56.
I see we have Jim Rosvet, our Public Works Director, up here. My question as he comes forward, is these items that we can purchase in this year's budget? Sherry?
This particular one, I'll let Jim.
Okay, thank you. Morning, Jim.
Morning. Regarding the trailer, it's more of a specialty trailer. It's rated for 20,000 pounds. We have an existing trailer right now that is 23 years old, I believe. It's rated for 10,000 pounds. We're using it for technically what we shouldn't be using. We're hauling stuff on it that legally we can't haul on it. We can repurpose that trailer, and what we'd like to do is turn that into a sign trailer. So, and we're out of touch with, we're getting in compliance with our barricades and our detours and our signs and that. So we'd use the old trailer to utilize that, put all our signs on our, if we're doing a detour in the city, we're doing our parades, everything's on that trailer. It's ready to go. We can go in to deal with a fire or reroute, whatever it might be. So we'd want to keep that old trailer. The thing with the new trailer also, it's a specialty trailer. It's a little longer trailer. It's set up to be universal for basically the whole city. It allows us to haul 4 golf carts on it. It allows us to haul 2 mowers on it. Allows us to haul our mini excavator, our skidster on it, our brush head and our attachments with our skidster. So everything's there for it. It's got a hydraulic tilt bed. You're not dealing with ramps anymore. It's something that's not on the Sourcewell bid though either. And the thing we're running into with COVID is we aren't available to get quotes on stuff right now. Most trailer manufacturers are 2 years out. They won't even look at you for 2 years with a trailer. RMS did come up with something with an option, and I know Sherry, we've talked in the past about trying to update this trailer so we're using the right size trailer for what we're actually hauling out there.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Let's act on this first one. Questions, comments? Councillor Johnson?
Jim. And we do have a truck that can pull the bigger trailer. I want to make sure.
Yes,
Okay,
yep.
and it's relatively new? I mean, the truck?
Yes, actually, we have several trucks. It can be pulled by 3/4 ton and 1 ton pickups, and we have, I believe, 4 of them, so.
Perfect. And I appreciate that you're forward-thinking and using the other trailer, and I like that idea. I know usually those fires happen Sunday evening at 5 o'clock, so. So I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase from RMS.
Okay, moved by Councillor Johnson to approve the purchase of a trailer for RMS Supply for the Public Works Department in the amount of $25,675.56. Is there support? Is there support?
Support for further discussion.
Support by, support by Councillor Freely with further discussion. Further discussion, do you have some good discussion? Okay, Councillor Freely, further discussion, then over to Councillor Beyondis. Councillor Freely.
So I'm assuming this is not a budgeted item for 22?
Mayor?
Sherry, could you answer Councillor Freely's question, please?
No, this came up after the fact, but it's been brought up at the Safety Committee meeting a couple times already because of work zone issues and safety that way. So we have decided to go ahead and split it between the streets, sewer, and the contingency fund, and I can send you out the balance so far of that. But I think it's well worth it. Even if we budgeted 30,000 for this, if we split it between there, we should be able to make it.
And well, the compliance with hauling loads, I mean, that just seems reasonable to do then.
Yeah, we don't want to be in violation of the Minnesota Department of Transportation regulations like we are now, so thank you. Anyone else? No, that was your question, Councillor Beyondis? Okay, thank you. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Okay, update on the Chris Steele dump truck purchase that was approved in January 25th of this year.
That's another COVID issue. All these are revolving around COVID. We were okayed for the new dump truck with the box, cutting edges, plows, sanders, everything. Unfortunately, after we had a purchase agreement agreed with Chris Steele, they told us there's going to be a surcharge of $16,300 additional to this. And so I did quite a bit of checking on it. I checked with Towmaster, I checked with Bert's, the other vendors in the states, in the state, and they're on the same page. The steel prices are so out of whack that they told us we will not abide by that. If you don't agree to it, we will drop that contract and you'll have to rewrite another, and you're probably going to pay another $20,000 more the next time around. So that's what we're dealing with right now. But I know a lot of them, they're not even agreeing to prices right now. So that's where we're struggling.
Yeah, put us between a rock and a hard place, that's for sure. But you're confident that this is, of course, you need to purchase this. Obviously, we were behind the times a little bit with respect to this. And so although we approved it in January 25th, 2022 for X amount of dollars, it's going to cost an additional $16,300 in order to accomplish the purchase. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And when does delivery time on this dump truck?
I believe it would be January of 23.
Okay,
Well, end of January of 23. The chassis, I believe, would be in the beginning of January, shipped to Christeel, and then ready for pickup for us towards the end of January.
Okay, and then one more question and a statement, actually. So you got information from the vendors that it may cost an additional $20,000, and we'd have to reapply I'll put a new application together, and that delays this purchase even further down the road. So your recommendation is for us to, for lack of a better analogy, eat the costs of this in order to accomplish what we need for your Public Works Department?
I don't see a better answer. I think if we resubmitted it, the price is going to come in higher yet.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Councilor Johnson.
The packet goes from 8A to 8C. I'm comfortable approving this as long as we have something in writing from them saying that it's 16,000 and it's not, they're not going to come back in a month and go, oh, by the way, we need another 5. Like, I'd like to see some kind of documentation that this is their final offer, I guess, or something.
And I did recommend that to the vendor. I said I want to speak with the council first, see where we're at on it, and then if so be the case, then we can get a written agreement.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion? We're looking for a motion with the codicil. Councilor Johnson, anyone else have questions, comments before a motion is being made? Councilor Beyondich.
My age-old question, where does that come from?
You're splitting it between 3 entities?
No, actually, this would be under the Public Works, and it would fall under, I assume, snow removal too, and we are under budget right now for that, so.
For the 2022?
For this year, yeah.
And we would be okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. We need a motion or additional discussion.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to continue the discussion to approve the increase in cost on the Christeel entity by 16,000, what was it?
$300.
And I'll make that motion because Jim is right. You keep seeing stuff, it just keeps going up. You're not going to get it any cheaper than that with the surcharges putting on everything.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Councilor Bearable to approve the updated Christeel dump truck that was approved in January 25th, 2022, an increase of $16,300. And with the codicil that we'll have something in writing as requested by Councilor Johnson and others to ensure that there's no other additional increases, and we're moving this to the City Council for final approval. Is there any further discussion? Looking for support for that motion. Support by Counselor Freely. Now, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Jim.
Garbage truck.
I'm sorry.
Garbage truck, Jim. Next item.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Britt, thank you.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Don't be surprised on this one either. Our last quote on our garbage truck was, I believe, around $240,000 in 2022. This one went up $80,000. So it tells you, like I say, it tells you what's going on with this, the surcharges, the cost of steel. I've never seen anything like it, but we're looking at a truck, $316,000, almost $317,000 to replace a garbage truck. And those trucks are about 2 years out. Same thing with the COVID backup. We're looking, that truck not probably being here till 24, sometime in 24. I think we figured it for 23, 24 budget is what we had planned it out at, but.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Counselor Johnson?
Is this something that can go in the equipment bond? Can this go on the equipment bond when we do the bigger?
Sherry?
When I talked with Jim Rossovich, we were looking at doing half in 2023 and the other half in 2024 out of the solid waste fund, but that is an option. We could see just how much bond money, kind of get it capped at 3 million. We don't really want to go too much higher than that.
So what is your recommendation moving forward?
I'd like to take it out of the enterprise fund next year, half, and then in 2024, the other half.
And still move forward with the purchase. Thank you. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. As these things come forward, and I'm assuming that we might not see the end of this for a while, but as these types of things come forward, it would be very helpful to have in our packet where the proposed dollars would be coming out of. Otherwise, we're just going to keep asking these questions. Is it coming out of the contingency fund? What's the balance of the contingency fund? How are you splitting it up? So it would be my recommendation that next time any department head comes forward, that there would be a financial plan in there so that the council can understand where these dollars are going to come and from what budgetary year they will be coming out of. Thank you. And you know what, if I need to make that as a motion, I will after this, but this is starting to get, where it's all verbal. I would like something in writing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can provide that, Sherry?
I'll work with the department head.
Okay, that answer your question, Counselor Paulson?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So it has been moved and supported? You have a motion yet? We don't have a motion yet either, so any further information? Counselor Beyondich.
How long do these trucks usually last?
We try to rotate them through about every 5 years is what I see. We do try to keep a spare because they do go down quite often. So we do have one sitting now that is actually being used today because of the holiday. So we send out a fourth truck during the holiday, but the turnover is right around that 5 to 6 year plan, so.
And are these in the capital outlay for every 4 or 5 years? Do we budget for this?
We do. Sherry, could you answer that for Counselor?
Yes, we do, and it should be in the capital outlay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich.
Mayor, I'll move that we authorize the purchase of the garbage truck you want it out of the enterprise fund, correct, Sherry?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. $316,873.22. Again, try to get something in writing, Jim, to verify that they're not going to crank it up another $20,000 or $50,000.
It's moved by Counselor Bearable. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Again, we're moving this to the County Council. Additional information should be forthcoming, and hopefully we'll have a cost analysis with respect to that to make a final decision at the next council meeting, but it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
So to clarify, we're authorizing you to go out for the purchase, and then we're going to be paying for, saving half of it next budget year, and then the other half for delivery in the 2024. Is that my understanding of the process we're looking at? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Has been moved and supported, and as things change for where it's going to come out of, it's recommended by our finance department that this is the best way to go. It's been moved and supported to purchase that. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jim.
Mayor, may I
Counselor
ask a
Bearable?
question that's
Sure.
related to this enterprise fund? Sherry and Britt, are we going to have to take a look at reauthorizing, relooking at this enterprise fund, the charges to the residents again? Because I'm thinking we're not far enough up the ladder now, again, to continue to have a profitability for these purchases in that. Is that something we need to look at in the future, Britt?
Sherry?
Mayor, if I may, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, Britt?
Yes, Charlie, but if you recall, in 2019 was our last residential increase. We were going to implement commercial increases in 2020, but COVID hit and we did not implement them. So we really, really need to look at our commercial garbage rates. Yep, the residential, I think, is in a good spot. It's the commercial rates that we need to look at adjusting.
Okay,
As
thank
long as
you.
we're going to look at that, I'm happy, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bearable. Okay, next item, please. Or do we vote? Okay, next item, please.
Thank you. Item number 9 is the request from Our Savior's Lutheran Church regarding their previous request according to their purchase agreement for installation of a fence.
And I know based on the recommendation, when we purchased that 66-foot easement for $220,000, part of that agreement was that we put up a fence at the boundaries of the property.
Correct. I have now been approached by Dr. Bob Rucka, who is one of the board members of the church, who came to me and said, we no longer want the fence. It's not as obtrusive or ugly as we anticipated it was going to be. We would rather have the cash.
Well, we paid $220,000 for the easement, and that was for the easement.
Correct. And
We
then
agreed to put a fence in so if they chose to have one.
Correct.
So there you have it.
I told Dr. Rucka that I would ask the council. their
All
wishes,
right, very
so.
good, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, questions, comments from the elected body?
Go ahead, Gary.
Councilor Freely.
My understanding is we no longer need the fence.
They no longer want the fence. We are obligated by the purchase agreement to place a fence, and they called me to state we don't want it anymore. But
So we're
we'd
no
like the
longer
cash.
obligated.
So
Cash for what?
the fence, the cash value of the fence.
To me, that makes no sense.
Now, we paid $220,000 for the easement and agreed to put a fence up so that if they chose to have one put up. But
What's
that
the
wasn't a
value?
part of the $220,000 purchase for the 66-foot easement. It specifically clears, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Britt, that easement was for the $220,000 was for the easement only.
And so they said that there is no longer a need for the fence because it's not as displeasing to them as it was in the past, so that negates the need for the fence or any compensation thereof, as far as I'm concerned. That's where I would be. It's null and void. They don't want the fence. We agreed that we would give them one, but they don't want it anymore. We're not obligated to give them any additional money for a fence that's not going to be built, in my opinion.
And so before we go to Councilor Paulson, would that be an accurate statement that I try to convey that with respect to that, or do we have an obligation with that, Brian?
No, Mayor. So I think Councilor Friedlieb is correct. The inclusion of that fence was a condition of the purchase agreement, and so the the two options that they have would be to enforce that condition and have us put a fence in, or waive that condition and not have us put a fence in. But there's no provision, or there's no legal theory that would allow them to convert a condition of an easement into a cash value.
Very good, thank you. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So in our packet, I do not see a formal, anything written on behalf of Our Savior's Lutheran Church. I basically just see the purchase agreement contract and when the resolution was approved, as well as the fence. So there's nothing to receive and file. I don't understand why there's nothing in writing with this request. Otherwise, I would have made a motion to receive and file, but there's nothing to receive and file.
Well, we could table, and then, I don't know if we get anything in writing. There was a request from one board member, or was that on behalf of the board, Britt?
It was on behalf of the board.
Okay, so,
Was it in writing?
Nope, it was a phone call.
was it by email or anything like
It
that?
was a phone call.
Just a phone call, okay.
Yeah, I would say if someone wants to come forward with something, it needs to be in writing, so.
So would the recommendation be take no action?
Yeah.
Anyone?
I'll make that motion, Mayor, that we take no action.
A motion by Counselor Bearable, is there support? Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson?
By making a motion, we're taking action. I think that we just let it go. Because now it's a negative motion to not, and if they want something, they should submit it in writing, and then we can take formal.
To uphold our obligation of the purchase agreement, I suggest that we make a motion to direct staff to contact the church, letting them know the fence will be installed within the next month. Let us know where you'd like it. That might be what gives the resolution, because we are right now in violation for not putting it in. So we do need to put that fence in, or make determination they don't want it, or whatever it may be.
So we should receive formal request from the Our Savior's Lutheran one way or the other.
We should, once we send that letter saying the fence is going in, where would you like it to be?
So so you're requesting, which makes more sense, to direct staff to contact them, is that correct? All right, thank you.
I'm going to rescind my motion then, Mayor.
Okay, Counselor Baraboo rescinds this motion, and Counselor Freely rescinds the second to that motion. So based upon the recommendations of our staff, which seems the most reasonable and prudent way to move, looking for a motion in that regard.
I'll move to direct staff to move forward following the contract and notify the church accordingly.
Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. I have a question as to why the fence was not put in shortly thereafter. The quote, which was from September of 21.
Brian?
At that point, we still had a lot of dirt stored where that fence would be going. It was the concern of the contractor, KA, that if we had installed that fence, that it would inadvertently gotten damaged. So it was recommended that we not install it till spring. We had discussed that with the church, and the church was fine with us not installing it until this year. And then, in all honesty, we dropped the ball and forgot about the fence until the church reached back out to us saying that they no longer wanted the fence.
Okay, very good. Counselor Paulson.
So if we go back to this and we have staff contact them and say, where do you want to put it? The reality is that we would be having to get a new bid estimate, I would assume, since this probably wouldn't be accurate any longer in terms of the pricing on this. So are we actually opening up a can of worms, or can we amend the purchase agreement with a little more ease than this? I'm just saying we might be walking into a situation where those costs are going to double. I don't know.
Well, I think, Brian, if you want to weigh in, we have a obligation to put the fence in if they request it because it was part of the agreement. right? And so regardless of what, the cost is probably not going to be the same as it was back then, right? So the question is, if they don't want the fence, I guess looking for an answer for Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have some options. At this point, because of where we are, going back and amending the purchase agreement is probably not a good option. What we're going to need to do is establish whether or not the church wants to enforce the condition, have us put a fence in, or whether they're willing to waive the condition and not have us put a fence in. I trust they'll make that determination based on whether or not there's a need for the fence, and whether or not they'd like the fence there, as opposed to, just trying to convert that condition into a couple dollars, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Paulson. We have a motion? Would you read the motion in a second back, please, before we act?
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Beyondich, to direct staff to proceed as noted in the purchase agreement with Our Savior's Lutheran Church and contact them regarding the installation of the fence.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 10 is a request from Old Architects for an additional fee for a SHPO Phase 2 evaluation.
I understand the need for the SHPO. I mean, I get what they're trying to do, but it just adds a significant amount of cost to, I don't know if it's, I guess they have a policy, but the legitimacy of it based upon a thing that, a place that no longer exists, I don't understand that at all. I don't understand that process looking at what they do. So it's just a way to go through a process to get some kind of approval, to document something, and it's going to cost us money in order to accomplish what we want to do in the first place. So first of all, Counselor Paulson, and then over to Counselor Johnson. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So this actually did confuse me as to where this origination is coming from. Is it coming from the USDA as a requirement, or is it, even though that Second Avenue has no historical designation, SHPO believes that, or the USDA believes that SHPO has to sign off on this?
When SHPO did their review of our area that we were going to be placed in the Public Safety Center, it also includes the review of the vacating buildings, so City Hall and the Fire Department. And so this Phase 2 is actually determined the historic nature of the Fire Department once they vacate that building.
So this isn't on the new facility site, this is on
No.
Right.
the old.
And because Minnesota SHPO has asked for this, USDA now is requiring it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It's very complicated, and we asked the same question. I wrote back and said, you realize this is not the building site. The building site has no historic value, and they said, yes, but we need to know what the fire department is going to be and what it was and the history of that building.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Johnson, then over to Counselor Bearable. Counselor Johnson.
Britt answered my questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, I think we should challenge that SHPO ruling on this personally. We've already had structural engineers in there saying that building is not safe anymore. And the ideal thing is to tear it down. That's the bottom line in the end. Because otherwise we're going to spend a fortune to shore it up and get that back to a structurally sound building. I think they're crazy myself on looking at this because it has nothing to do with the current site. And we have never as a city, and has anybody told them we're a charter city that we don't have to follow those rules? Nobody has told them that yet. Because we don't have to follow certain of those rules, and I believe that's one we don't have to follow if we really look at a charter city versus statutory city, because this is nothing to do, and we've never designated Second Avenue or Second Street as a historic designation, no place, not even federally or statewide. We did Main Street and we did some on First Street South, We have not done anything on North Street, or Second Street North. Thank you.
So quick question with respect to this. So I guess a simple question, yes or no. Can we continue moving forward the Public Safety Center moving forward and then discuss this as a secondary issue with respect to SHPO and how we're going to use that old fire hall, or are they tied together as one?
This is a requirement of USDA. We can go no farther with our loan application with them until this SHPO review is done.
And there you have it. Okay, thank you, Britt.
We're locked in.
Okay, very good. So thank you for that, cutting through peeling away the onion, whatever I want to call it. Thank you, Britt. So looking for council action.
We'll move the agreement with Wald to meet the USDA requirements.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councilor Johnson to approve the request from Old Architects for the additional fee for the SHPO Phase 2 evaluation. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Freely.
And there must be contingency monies that are available within the project that we anticipated these potential costs, correct?
Correct. This is definitely under the EMS fund that we've got going here, and yes, we will find the money.
And can I ask one more question? Sorry.
Please do, yeah.
Britt, what's the amount we're seeking to loan or borrow from USDA? What's the amount that what's the maximum loan?
Offhand, I don't remember. I thought it was, I don't.
Well, they will do the entire, they want to be the only financing agency. So any loans we have outside of them, they will overwrite all of them and pay off if the temporary loan we have, any other things we have.
Given
So the entire
9
project amount is what they are looking at.
Really?
Yes.
Outside of the 9.37?
Outside of 9.5.
Or 9.5?
Yep.
Okay.
So they want to be the very last funding agency. They want us to get all our funds in place, and then they will come in and be the only funding agency by writing off.
So
all the rest of
ultimately,
those.
this 25,000 is a drop in a bucket for what we might in fact get.
It is, and unfortunately, and I know John can speak a little more to this, the environmental review process from the federal government is very cumbersome, and this is what they require as part of the environmental review process. I did sit on this for a long time and debating with our architects, do I really need to bring this to the council? And I debated with John, and they've flat out said, if you do not do this, USDA will not give you, you will have no chance of getting your loan application approved.
Thank you.
And I think we got $9.5 million from the state bonding bill. And so I think as a council, we approved approximately $29,874,000, right in that area, just under $30,000 for the entire project. So if you subtract $9.5 million from that, you're looking at about $20 million, a little bit more. So do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was thinking it was almost around 19,000 or so, but that, our debt limit would have to be increased by the legislature in order to go forward with any USDA funding.
Or we have to do an HRA bond. HRA bonds have a little higher interest rate, so there would be a interest rate discussion there. So either HRA bond or
Okay.
a lower interest rate.
Okay,
USD bond.
so if the HRA process, if the legislation fails, basically that knocks out the USDA's.
The total payoff, they will not pay for the total thing. They would do up to 20 million.
Up to 20 million.
Yep.
But I didn't think it was exceeding that.
It will if we can get through all this process.
So 9-point-something million plus that's 29 million. Is that where we're at with the total project?
So far, yes.
And that's what we approved, a maximum by a council action.
And what had they been authorized, what amount had they been authorized up to?
USDA,
From USDA was 11?
we haven't even got that far yet.
I mean, at first, when you were applying, the reason that we had to have you go down and speak was because they had a cap. What was that
The
cap?
20, our debt limit's 11, yes.
11?
Yep.
Okay.
And to get around that, we either need a HRA bond or we need USDA, or that legislation that allows USDA to go above 11.
Okay. So, the reason I'm hesitant on this is because if they come back and they say, this XYZ all needs to be done, and they're not going to let the city demolish that building, and then we actually have to perform those things, I mean, before we say yes to doing this, I want to know what happens if they come back with this review with all these recommendations. Do those recommendations have to be done prior to us, I guess, building the new, not only building the new facility, I don't know if you're following what I'm saying, but I don't want to have them give us, I mean, because I've kind of been going through some of this too, and it's very frustrating. But if they come in and they say, hey, you got to go shore it up and fix it, and it's going to be over $1 million to do that to that building, which is certainly sure as could be, are they going to allow us to demolish it if it is if it is historic?
Yes, you can demolish a historic building. You have to go through the environmental review process like we did with the county building when that was coming down. We had to have those public hearings that this was going to happen. And they cannot compel you to fix something. The brewery building is a historic building, and nobody's been able to compel the owner to do anything on that building. So they may make recommendations, they may tell us this is what they think, they just...
So they can't compel the city
to
do something?
No.
Okay.
They may put up the requirements that you need so many public hearings before you demolish, you need to do this, and then put back something like we had to do the mural out here.
Okay.
Something
So
like
we
that,
wouldn't, technically though, when they come back with this review, we would not there wouldn't be compulsory for us to do that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Our architect has alluded, his thoughts are they're going to suggest that we do get it on the historic register is going to be the recommendation. And again, that would be up for the city to do the nomination and the...
And just one other question, if I may. After this review process is done, are they going to also then make us make changes to the existing architectural design or rendering to make it look like it was?
No,
it is historical?
that area has been deemed not historic.
So
There is
we
nothing
don't
over
have
there.
to
They may, if we tear down the fire hall, they may make us do something to pay homage to what was there.
Okay. Okay.
Like this with this mural I did out here, and I'm assuming they'll probably want us to, they'd probably be pleased if we did make an homage somewhere in our building to that old fire hall, like the fountain we have down in the city hall or something like that.
Okay. Thank you, Britt. I appreciate that.
No problem.
And once again, before we move forward, and I'm going to go to John Sullivan in a moment, before we move forward, before we can go any further with this, in order to get the loan, we have to approve, this, to do the SHPO evaluation, because if we don't approve it, then the project stops. The project has got to continue, and we continue to work with SHPO with respect to the old facility moving forward, and it's valid to discuss it at this point. It's valid for us to understand what we need to do, but we do need to approve this in order to continue to move forward with the project, so it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Baraboo.
Mayor, I don't think we have to move forward with this. Okay, here's my reasoning behind this. Right now, in order for us to get a increase in our bonding capacity for this city, this is tied to the USDA. If we don't get that, and our chances, if they don't call a special session, may be nil to none, because you're going to have all these changeovers of all these legislators in January. They may not go along with what the committees approved. Both House and Senate approved what our request was. If they say no, the USDA thing is all out of the picture. We're going to have to go with what Britt suggested with the HRA bond on this. So if the USDA is out of the picture, why does SHPO even have a leg to stand on to force us to look at that building? I don't think they have a leg to stand on if we were to really look at this. That's my philosophy on this. We don't have a guarantee yet, and if they have a special session, we probably do. But if we don't, what did they say? How many legislators? There's been almost, I can't remember, it's way up there, are changing over in January. And you don't know what they're going to do. You know what their whims are. So that's my thoughts on this. Can't we sit on this for a while?
That would hold up the process. So if legislation came forward, we'd be that farther behind in our construction process.
Well, we're behind right now with what we got. Some of these things we're going to have to go through that John presented us with this map to go forward with condemnation on some of these buildings. We're going to be behind the eight ball, because if we don't get them all, we're not going to start, are we, on this project? Or are we going to start with these buildings still there? Are we going to start? Okay, if we're going to do that, then we probably don't have a choice.
Okay, we're going to take a break and a couple more items here, then we'll take a quick break. But I want John Sullivan to comment on this. John?
Thank you, Mayor. I have talked, as Britt's correct, we've, we looked at this and hemmed and hawed and went over a lot of different things, and unfortunately, he who has the money makes the rules, and whether we're a statutory city or not, or whatever, it doesn't really matter. What SHPO did really pinned us in a corner, and USDA basically called us out on it and said, well, we need to see a plan, because Britt and I's argument to them was, this isn't part of the project. The old fire hall isn't the project. And SHPO decided that it's significant enough. But I guess just for clarification purposes, when this historical report goes out, the report is not to say to USDA and to SHPO, yeah, we're tearing the fire department down. That's not what this is about, and that's not the plan. Maybe someday, way off in the future, we'll tear it down, but that's not what this report's going to say. I just want to make that clear, because there's a lot of talk about demolition, and to my knowledge, there's no plan to demolish the old fire hall. It's just, what are we going to do? And what we're going to do with it, and I can have Chief come up, but we're going to store vehicles in there, and we're going to utilize that, and we're going to keep it. That's what we're writing in the plan. And Britt, if I've said anything wrong, please correct me. But thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, John. That clarifies things significantly. Thank you very much. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion?
Here,
Hearing and see, Councilor
I have
Baraboo.
one point to make. The reason we didn't put the whole city of Virginia into a historical perspective was the fact that back when we looked at this many years ago, nobody here was on the council at the time we looked at this, was the fact that it was too detrimental to anybody that wanted to remodel and redo and do stuff with their businesses, is why we didn't go into a whole historical district. That's why we didn't. Because it put too many restrictions on what a business owner might want to do to their property. So that's where that all stems from, way back. Thank you.
Okay, so it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Let's put these last two items on the agenda here under building, under finance, and then we'll take a quick break. Britt?
The next item is to determine the fee for the utility right-of-way permit application. As you will recall, we just approved the requirement for that private utilities placed into our right-of-ways must have a permit. So we now need to set a resolution authorizing that permit fee and the dollar amount.
Okay, and the recommendation is?
$35 a permit.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Will this just impact contractors? Is that correct, not residents?
That's the intent. It's the majority of the times it's a contractor like a Paul Bunyan or a CTC or who else, Bill? Who am I thinking of? Bill Cole? Any other vendor I can think, any private contractors that would dig in the right of way?
Bill? I think $35 is pretty reasonable fee.
It is
so,
pretty reasonable, actually.
Bill?
Yes, it's a very reasonable fee. There's quite a bit of work goes into investigating what other utilities may be in the ground. Public Utilities has to approve it. We have to approve it through Public Works. Generally, it is contractors themselves that are doing the work in the public right-of-way. Sometimes it is an individual. But the $35 permit fee is, if it stops them from doing it, okay.
Thank you, Bill. Councilor Paulson, please
Thank
continue.
you. I guess I was just wondering if it should be higher. That's why I wanted to bring that forward, because if you're going to do a significant project like what is being outlined in the resolution, I don't know if that should be higher.
Right now, fiber optic is a big thing.
Yep.
You'll notice they're boring everywhere in town. digging holes. The permit fee basically covers our staff time to investigate it and make sure the project is doable. There is, I think we've already passed the bond that every contractor has to have a bond on file with the city for the year for the projects.
Okay, I would be fine with increasing it but if you feel that that's significant to cover staff time and costs, I'm fine with that, but I thought that sounded a little low with if you're gonna do that type of a significant project.
I think at this time, $35 is reasonable. As time goes on, staff time costs more. It needs to be looked at again.
Thank you.
So if it's one block, $35.
Yep.
If it's 15 blocks, it's $35.
$35.
It's a permit to give you, trigger your inspection of this to ensure that they're doing it properly and legally. Thank you.
And like Bill mentioned too, the contractors will have to provide a performance bond or a
Right.
certificate of insurance as well. So that's also a cost to them. So at this time, at the 35 is probably a good thing to start with, and we can work up from there.
Well, I'm fine with the recommendation made by staff with respect to this. Counselor Johnson.
Appreciate those clarifications. Just wondering what constitutes a project? Like, once they're here, is their project ongoing for years, or how are we making sure they're not one in and just saying, oh, it's an addition to? Is there any?
Some of the projects may take them more than a year. It's kind of like our street projects, you know. They have big ideas and they can't get it all done in a year. Weather is a deterrent. But basically, it should be done in a year. And in the past, our biggest thing was, okay, if they don't come back and restore everything to what it was, what do we do? The permit fee is really not much. It's the bond that's going to count for us.
Thank you, I appreciate that clarification. I'll move the fee schedule.
Okay, Counselor Johnson moves to approve the $35 fee schedule as requested by staff, a permitting fee for utilities in public areas. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Let's go one more item, Britt, then we'll take a break.
Yes, item number 12, request for purchase of office furniture for City Hall staff. Specifically, the Community Development Permitting Office and the City Attorney's Office.
You're still up at the plate, I guess, Bill, so what do you got?
There's two directions we can go here. At this time, the Attorney's Office, we only have one quote for. The CDPP, we have two. We can either approve one of those quotes at this time or wait until we get another quote for the Attorney's Office and then do them all at once.
What is your recommendation?
I'd like to get started on it and approve the CDPP furniture. And probably at the next meeting, hopefully, bring the Attorney's Office quotes to you.
So the concern I have, the quotes, if they're not all bundled into one under one umbrella, it might be cheaper than to do, just separate them out or not.
There is no change in price.
There's no change in price. Thank you very much. That's all I need to know.
I know the question's going to be asked. This is in the budget for this year.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, thank you. I'm fine with that. It's moved by Counselor Freely to approve. Is there support? Support by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? First Counselor Paulson and then Counselor Bearable. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. Okay, I'm confused. We've got one, it seems like a bunch of proposals from Innovative and one from Range Office. Is that correct? I don't know what the CD, whatever it is.
Community Development Permitting and Planning Office, CDPP.
Oh, okay, but we're getting quotes on the same furniture from two different companies, is that correct?
Yes.
But yet, they don't, one business doesn't have everything in it for the attorney's office?
The attorney office still needs a second quote. So that quote, the one that's in the packet is $6,011.71.
That's
She is
for-
proceeding with the second quote. That's for the attorney's office.
We need two quotes.
For the Community Development Department, we do have
The
a
range
quote
office.
from Range Office and one from Innovative.
Right, and I think what I'm looking at is, when we have discussed this in the past, we were trying to stay local, and I don't know where Innovative is. It looks like you have a local sales rep, but it's a 952 area code.
They're the office furniture company.
Northern Business Products, out of Hibbing.
From Hibbing.
Have they changed their name to Innovative?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. So I think I would be more comfortable having them side by side and comparing apples to apples, and then having, we had significant discussion about supporting our local businesses when we do purchase things for the city, and that would be where I would be coming from moving forward. But it's hard for me to ascertain what items, unless I can figure out the serial numbers and hold them side by side of the Han products. So I would really appreciate if you had both of them side by side with the same apples to apples equipment. It can be broken out by room or whatever, but just a total on the same pieces of equipment for the total project. Thank you.
Both quotes.
Thank you. Well, the clarification on the motion by Councilor Johnson, was that to go with the innovative project or just to move the purchase forward to the city council for further discussion?
Actually, it was for range office supply because it is only a $700 difference if my math is right, and I would prefer to shop local with
Okay, so
that
thank you.
for
So the clarification is the motion for range office supply. Thank you, Councilor Johnson. And the support also as well? Okay. Any further discussion with respect to that, moving forward to the next council meeting? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. So this quote of the $14,824.27 includes what? But or maybe I should say this,
You look at,
doesn't include the attorney's office.
Correct.
Okay, so then we would just need a secondary quote for the attorney's office.
Attorney's office.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
that would be coming in from Range Office.
Got it. I'm good with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, Councilor Baraboo.
Sherry, is this in this year's budget or next year's? I wasn't clear on that.
This year's budget of $30,000.
Okay, so we did have it in there already. Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Let's take a few minutes break here. Thank you, and we'll resume our building and grounds deal. So, thank you. Okay, let's go, everybody. If you can have a seat, please, and we'll continue with our committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you. Item number 13 is approve the police department to hold the second annual Range Recovery Night Out on Tuesday, September 20th at Alcott Park from 4 to 7.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Paulson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Item 15 is review the draft development agreement with GNN Enterprises LLC.
Want to give us a little synopsis, please?
Can I defer to John Sullivan, please?
John?
Thank you. This is for this site, GNN Enterprises. This is at, the current address is 224 Chestnut Street, and that's the current location of the building that was formerly known as Monso's Music. Now, GNN Enterprises purchased that building, and they own it, and they also purchased from the city the 2 lots on each side that straddle it, which are just east of the smoke shop on Chestnut Street. Mr. Brad Gustafson and his partners are the entities of GNN Enterprises. I wrote this development agreement, and I've had a couple versions of it, and this is the final version. They have signed this, and they're waiting for the city to approve it. This is the standard development agreement language that we have used in the past for these type of projects in the area. And this one's a little bit longer because we took the time to identify the funding sources in here and what's part of the package, and his financing has been approved by the bank and the SBA. That was the last thing we were waiting for, along with the appraisal. Okay. Technical malfunction there, sorry, folks. So anyway, the financing was approved based on the appraisal, and that's kind of what we had been waiting for, which was one of the delays, but it got approved. If you'll recall, part of the Main Street grant that the Virginia Community Foundation received, that was in partnership with the city, part of that is reserved for this project, and that's identified in the development agreement as well. What they're proposing to do is build a facility of at least $1 million and no less than 3,940 square feet. And what they're doing now is their architect is LHB out of Duluth and the Twin Cities. They're running out of the Duluth building. So they've authorized, there's going to be demo first, and that's going to be in the fall. And the demo is covered by the portion of the IRRB and the VITA grant funds that we've given them. And then in the spring, they are going to start construction. So there's some timelines they have to meet, and those are also in the, spelled out in the development agreement when they have to be complete. Basically, project completion is a certificate of occupancy from the building department. And then once they receive that, they should be good to go to open the business. If you'll recall, this is the Forge House. This is a combination entertainment service facility, a bar, and it's going to be an axe throwing as the entertainment that they're going to have with it. So far, everything seems to be in line, and staff is recommending the development agreement as presented. If there's any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. So that's in a nutshell. It's recommended by staff. Apparently, significantly due diligence was done with respect to this. It's another development agreement in the downtown area. It's been recommended moving forward with this development agreement as proposed. Looking for council action.
I'll move to approve.
Councilor Preely moves to approve of the recommendation by staff with respect to the development agreement with GNS Services. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. John, I just want to say thank you very much for all the hard work, and Britt, that you guys have all done on this. And it's very exciting that it's actually going to take place and it's moving forward, even though I think they've scaled it back a number of times. But and I appreciate the hard work that VITA has done on this. It's just exciting to have another Something new on Chestnut Street, so thank you for all your work.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Counselor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freely.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Item number 16 is discussion on the city's ordinances regarding blight.
Thank you. And I know that this is, that came up, and I'll move to Counselor Beyondich first and then over to anyone else. But I just want to say I went with a group of people this weekend and toured various areas of the city, pointing out a significant amount of blight. As you know, the blight officer has a stack of blight complaints that they work on every single day. But there's some significant issues with blight in the area. I'm not just talking about grass. I'm talking about conditions of property. And I'm going to give you an example of 604 3rd Avenue South. Anybody has a chance to go look at that piece of property? I've been working with billing official for that. So blight is a significant issue. It needs to be addressed. And so I know this was brought up, and we're all frustrated with that. So I'm going to move to the council for additional discussion. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. So first of all, we do have a blight officer. In that, do they go around the city and look at properties?
Not as often as they would like, because they also have to correct violations, mow our public safety center buildings that we own, and then mow these ones that are in violation as well.
So it's
And they cannot enter a property to remove anything without having gone through this process completely.
So it's my understanding, because I have had numerous people approach me about properties either near them or next to them about blight issues, that they have to file the complaint. Why is that?
Because if you read our ordinance, a complaint must be filed according to our property maintenance code.
So our blight officer does not do that.
She will do violations, but she doesn't see everything, and she doesn't drive every single street and up, down every avenue and such.
So if we give because I have given you a list of properties that people have given me that I've looked at. I mean, I just do a drive-by and I look at them. Why would a citizen have to, so when a citizen files the complaint, that name is not made known until or unless it goes to court.
Correct. It is confidential.
So that when I've talked to residents about this issue, they have a problem with that their name is on there when we have a blight officer, that is their job to do that, and the resident that is bringing this forward should not feel that there would be any repercussions to what they're doing for their neighborhood, and that's the issue.
Even if the blight officer is the one that does the complaint, the neighbor, they always assume it's the neighbor. We get phone calls all the time saying, tell me who it is. I can't tell you. It's my neighbor, isn't it? Can't tell you that. You know,
But it comes out when it goes to the court process.
But we very rarely ever get to court.
Well, we're going to court with one.
Yes.
And that may not be the only one.
It's been very
So
publicly known, yes. That one.
that is an issue for residents in this town being afraid to speak up about what is happening. And I think we really need to look at that, because when you're living in a neighborhood and you have a property, and it doesn't have to be next door, but in your neighborhood, you're not going in the yard, you're not going in the house. It's for me to drive by and see what they're telling me, and I'm wondering, why does that person have to put their name out there?
We have to have a complaint to bring to court from somebody.
But that's what a blight officer should be doing, is going around and looking. If we give an address, why are they not going around to look at it?
They do. They have to go take photos. When
Okay.
you give us an actual complaint, the blight officer has to go take photos. So the blight officer is there. But the complaint should come from a resident, and it's a private information, confidential, cannot be given out until it goes to court. Long grass complaints never make it to court because we have the ability to just go mow them. Matters of taste, their house is pink, I don't like it, it's not a blight complaint.
No. And I don't think the ones that I've been notified of, but when I do tell them that they have to file the complaint, that's where the issue comes in.
And any council member could file if you saw it, you could file the complaint.
So I can file
file
a
the
complaint
complaint.
on all those properties.
Yes, I know the mayor has done quite a few of those in the past. Sorry, Mayor, but,
And I'll continue to do so.
yes. Yeah, so
Okay,
it is
I'll-
absolutely perfect for you to do it as well. Our blight officer, she is a one-man show. She does everything she can. I mean, now, all these parcels we own in green, she's responsible for mowing every single week also, including the blight violations that have been happening throughout the summer. So her list by this time of year is very, very long.
So when it's a county-owned property, how is that handled?
We notify the county at the beginning of the year, these are the properties we have on record you own, are you gonna mow it or not? If you don't realize, we're gonna assess you, like we do everybody else. But usually the county takes that one.
So the county, when they acquire a property, they
Their staff
also
takes it.
resume the responsibility for keeping that property up?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I recently had to do this after being patient all summer. And for me, I'm looking specifically at the form and that process. It's very intimidating when it starts asking who's the property, who's the landlord. I'd like us to make our form more user-friendly that says if known. And if it's a paper form, maybe for the comfort of people, putting the person, making the file on one side and then the complaint on the other side. That way it doesn't accidentally get out ahead of the schedule. You know what I mean? This is all on one page, and I think that's intimidating, that people don't understand that they don't actually see this form.
They don't see any of this.
Right.
Unless there's a data practice request, and then we have to redact it and explain to the person that asked the data practice request why I redacted it.
And what I'd like to see is that the reporter's information on the other side, because then I just think for someone filling out the form, it would be a lot easier to say that maybe on the bottom that this information is private information and will be redacted if released, or whatever it needs to be, so that people have more comfort. It is frustrating to have to tell on your neighbors, but like you said, I mean, we can only do so much, and as representatives of citizens, I have no problem filling out reports. My brother-in-law asked me yesterday about a property, and I said, go online and fill out the report. So I think separating that information and putting what's absolutely needed, as opposed to, because the property next to me got sold twice in the last year, I believe, so I didn't know. And I just put unknown at this time, and it was taken care of. So, but I think allowing folks more information on how to fill it out might encourage folks to fill it out more often. Thank you.
Thank you, and I know this is, we've had a long meeting, but we're discussing this now, and I'm just going to point out just one example of what's a significant problem that our staff has not been able to address, only because there's an issue with respect to the homeowner. The fear that's being instilled on the neighbors, the fear that's being instilled on our staff, the abusive language and those kind of things are moving on a property that's up in Midway, as we're probably not all aware of that, but if you go down and look at a place on East Parkway, you'll find out how an issue is. This is a problem. And the people on each side of them keep their property so nice. And so the question is that, a complaint needs to be filed. So as an example, I went and filed the complaint. But our city staff are afraid to go over there. Even when they bring a police officer over there, it's so abhorrent. If you look at a piece of property, and we have an issue we've been dealing with at 410 5th Street South, there are many other properties that are 10 times worse than that. But that's an example of what needs to be done and what we're not doing. Not that we're not trying to do it. It's that what are the mechanisms in place in which to accomplish that? It is horrible. And so our issue is that beyond just the addressing from our blight officer, beyond just the addressing from our staff, there has to be a mechanism in place future down the road where we can, maybe these people are afraid to file a complaint, as you indicated, Councilor Beyondich. So, and the actions that are, it's not that the person's committing a crime, but just the intimidation and and those kind of things, that creates a problem. But our code officer goes there and is swearing, "I'll get off my property." What are our options moving forward? So I think that's something we have to continue to look at as quickly as we can in order to find a mechanism in which to accomplish that goal and objective. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you, and that was my suggestion maybe, is that we look at that and see how it can be accomplished. If what I'm hearing is that law enforcement is afraid to go there or being treated in any way, a private citizen certainly isn't going to. So this just needs to be addressed before more are coming forward. But they've also told me they don't want to put their name on it because of what could happen. So I think we need to address this further.
Yeah, and law enforcement is not fearful. They'll go anywhere,
enforcement will go
anytime.
there.
It's our staff, other staff that is concerned. The
That
police
one, the
department.
one you're referring on East Parkway is past law enforcement, it's the point of attorney, and it's a different
Yeah,
situation.
and
But
so, so, yes,
thank
thank
you.
you, thank you.
And the point of this also too is why we really like the neighbor to become in, because by statute, we are only allowed to be on the sidewalk or the alley. We can't go on the property to take photos or anything. So if the neighbors are the ones that do the complaints, we oftentimes get to ask them, can I come on your property to look at the neighbor's backyard? That case you had with the garage over there. The reason why we hadn't gotten over there to do the request for the garage falling down, we had to contact those two neighbors prior and try to get access. We couldn't get a hold of anybody. So unless somebody gives us permission to enter their property, we can't take a lot of the pictures we need. There's a case on 6th Street that if you were not on the elevated deck in the back of the complainant's property, you could not see the blight in the house next door because their fence was so tall. But when you're standing on the thing, you can see that the yard is completely covered from back door to the garage full of garbage. And so without that complainant giving the complaint, we couldn't make the blight complaint to that person. So there's validity to these neighbors helping us out with these things, because our blight officer is required to stay on the sidewalk or the street, strictly by statute, unless invited by the neighboring property owner.
Thank you. Would you like to continue, Councilor Beyondich?
No, I would like to, I don't know if we need to look at the policy or what we can do to help move this along.
I think Pam sent you all there's a lot of ordinances that go with this. If you want to take a review of that, I think changing the form, like Steve mentioned, trying to make it a little more user-friendly and a little more assuring that these things are not going to get out. There is not a chance the city takes these things very seriously, and we do not do data leaks whatsoever. It hasn't happened, and hopefully it will never happen.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. What's to state that we can't take an anonymous complaint?
If I may.
Please.
So from my perspective, thinking about this in terms of the legality of it and enforcement, anytime we start talking about anything that's criminal or could end up in a citation or even quasi-criminal, and if we're sending our officers or blight officers or folks who are enforcing our ordinance out, one of the things that we need to at least keep in mind is when we're undertaking these types of activities, we are addressing blight, but we're also acting, at least to a certain degree, in a criminal context. And one of the things we've got to keep in mind is our officers and our agents and representatives have to have probable cause. So you have to be able to support your actions. And it sounds kind of silly in this context, but if you get into court, one of the first questions that may be asked is, well, and this is a great example, if it's not clearly visible from a public space, you may have the neighbor saying, well, why did you even come and look? And the officer who's building that case has to be able to start from the back and say, I received information from a citizen. And when you start receiving information from citizens, there's a whole body of case law that talks about how to judge the credibility and what effect that statement has. And those statements are a lot more actionable if they're not anonymous. If they're anonymous, it creates some potential issues for the ultimate prosecution of the file.
Okay, and I understand that. So is the request kind of to have staff go through this and rework it? I may ask that it says, what if I have a problem with my neighborhood? Number one, try talking with your neighbor. And then if you need help identifying the owner of a rental property, contact the St. Louis County Assessor's Office. Do we not now have our own rental list? So maybe that should change. It just seems so cumbersome.
To have them call us, maybe.
To have them call the county,
It is.
But I would also, I don't know that I would recommend talking to the neighbor, because I feel like that could potentially be a domestic altercation, unfortunate opportunity, or a harassment type of a situation. So I would probably remove that language from there. And I understand we can't have anonymity, but
I think we can add greater language assuring their anonymity. I think that might be where Counselor
Maybe
Johnson's going at, is something that really stresses the importance of their name to us and how we keep it private.
Okay.
What we do to ensure that it stays private until the point of lawsuit.
I have a question for you, and I know this is probably legal, Brian. Like, when you go into a court proceeding and say, I don't know, whatever, say for all practical purposes, they just sometimes use the first and last initial. Can you in fact use a first and last initial if we go into a court proceeding, which obviously doesn't happen very often, but can you use a first and last initial instead of the entire person's name?
Or complainant A, complainant B.
Or complainant, correct. Actually, that would make me feel better.
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. The use of that type of the limiters, it's potential to a point, but in all reality, from a practical standpoint, if we're forced to go to court to try that case, that person is likely going to be asked to take the stand and actually testify in open court.
So the question is...
But it could be done.
Well, it
I mean,
does...
technically, it could be done unless it was challenged and someone had to go to court, then their name would be revealed.
And when it gets to the point of court, the actual complaint comes from the building official. So it would be if it got to trial, where the judge would then compel everybody that's a witness to come forward. But the actual complaint is from the building official to the city, it makes the city council do the resolution. So it's the building official that'll go first. It'll say, this is what I received, this is the information I've gotten. And so, we hope that they don't go to jury trial, but it could.
But if in the event, and there's nothing that says we can't do that, it might just be revealed at some point.
Well, the question is, Brian, is the philosophy of the right to face your accuser, is that the general rule by the court statute, that if you're accused of something, you have the right to face the complainant, which, and the representative can't be the city of Virginia who's getting complaints, and so we can't be the second party. If there's a complaint, the individual has the right to face your accuser. Is that correct?
That is correct. And Mayor, if I may just expand a little bit more.
Yeah, please.
The other piece that we're looking at is, as soon as we start using these limiters again, and I suppose kind of the general concept is, as a practical matter, somebody could draft an anonymous complaint and slip it under the doors of City Hall while nobody's around. But it all goes back to, I think one of our data practice forms indicates, you need to give your name and address and your contact information. And then it qualifies. It says, well, you don't have to give that information, but it gives the city a better ability to do its job if you do. And so that's, the more information we have and the more people are willing to provide to us, the better the city can be in going out, addressing the concerns and addressing the complaints.
And I appreciate that, and I get that. I think what the main conversation that is taking place is that people don't want their name out, they don't want it public, and they don't want it to come from them. But obviously, we have a severe blight issue that we do need to handle, and we need to be able to allow our constituents, our citizens, to have a safe place where they can report. And so however that form can be changed to make it safe, or that people feel safe, that we would value their confidentiality, that's where I would go with this. So anything that we can do for that would make me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And what I've done in the past is, instead of going through staff, I'll file the complaint myself, and I'll put my name on the complaint, and that if I have to go to court to testify, I certainly will as an elected official. That's part of our responsibility sometimes to do that, to deflect and to protect the citizen from being harassed or communicated with or retaliated against or whatever the case may be. And so me being the conduit for an issue is to go take a look at this property. So I'll go take a look at property and I'll be the complainant for that regard. So that sometimes will protect the citizen from moving forward. And, frankly, in answer to some of the concerns that you had, Councilor Beyondich and others, that I have received telephone calls, stay out of my business, blah, 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 that's not your job, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Knowing that I was a complaint in that regard, and the building official was actually told him, well, the mayor made this complaint. And that's fine. But it protects the citizen, and there is a concern with respect to that, I agree. So I think we need to take another look at the ordinance itself, shorten the form, as Councilor Johnson indicated, address the issues with respect to protecting the citizens as best we can in accordance with the law. And thank you for the clarification, the legal advice with respect to how we can move forward and address those issues. Is there anything else, Councilor Beyondich?
So how would we proceed with this? To get it on for a meeting, to make motions, and to follow through on it?
What are you referring to? I was going to make a form, redo the form
Okay,
and try to make it a little more user-friendly and very clearly state, we are required by statute to have a data protection policy, so we do have a plan for data breaches and data breaks and such. So I could include portions of that to assure people that this is how we deal with your data. It is never visible. Even if we got a data practice request, it is redacted, which makes a lot of people very angry, but that's our right to do that. And I think making, like Steve said, making it a little more user-friendly. This form was drafted as a coverall, but I think we need to break it out a little bit.
so that will come forward.
That will
us
come
again.
forward to you guys for review, yeah.
And we are directing staff to do that.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Beyondich.
Because there's two paths to this form. Some of it is 10-inch landlord related, and that's where the rental code will take care of that. So it is appropriate to start changing this form to directly more blight, and then we'll have a rental code form. So if you need to tattle on your landlord, you have a different form for that. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
The next item is item number 17, discuss property offers and waivers for relocation of parcels in public safety development area. This portion of the meeting may be closed as per Minnesota Statute 13D05, subdivision C3.
So 17A, B, and C, can we keep that public, or do we can't? John, thank you. Okay, John?
Thank you. First and foremost, on your desk in front of you, you should have an updated form, which is hot off the press from, I've been updating these every month now, and that's September's right there. I try to date them and color code them when they come out, so we're making progress, as you can see, and moving backwards. The strategy all along was the north was the most important, moving towards the south. So we've kind of followed that as a strategy, and it's worked out fairly well. That being said, launching into them, my recommendation is first for 105 8.5 Street South to move that forward.
Okay, thank you. Council?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Johnson to approve,
Support.
and supported by Councilor Paulson to approve the property offer and waivers for relocation at 105 8.5 Street South. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. John?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My second recommendation is 1008 South Second Avenue, the acquisition of this property.
Thank you.
So moved.
Moved to approve by Councilor Johnson, supported by
I'll support, Mayor.
Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And my last recommendation is for the property at 115 10th Street South to be purchased.
So moved.
Moved to approve by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Britt, is item 18, 19, 20, and 21 all suggested to go into closed session?
Just 18, 19, and 20. 21 can stay out of
Okay,
closed session.
18, 19, and 20. Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion to move into closed session by Councilor Freely, supported by
Or for discussion.
Council Beyondich, further discussion? Council Johnson?
Can we set the budget meeting at the end of the live meeting so that folks know when that's going to be?
We'll do so. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, any further discussion on closing the meeting for 18, 19, and 20? And so it will be discussed the request for purchase of city-owned property in 2 locations, 4th Street North and vacant land in Midway. 19 is to discuss city to purchase parcels in Virginia in a certain subdivision. Item 20 is labor negotiation strategy. So all those in favor signify by saying aye to move into closed session.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Let's close all the doors, we'll move into closed session.
Can we set the budget meeting first?
You want to do that?
Yes.
Okay, so before we go into closed session, let's set the budget meeting for fiscal year 2023. I was hoping we could do that at the end. There might be some additional other items of concern to discuss, but we can set the budget meeting, look at your calendars, what's available and what is staff recommending. Sherry, do you have a recommendation on when you'll be available for any additional information that was requested or just have the second round of budget consideration?
Thank you, Mayor. I would suggest the sooner the better, preferably early next week.
Okay. You know, to accommodate most people's schedules, hopefully, I know that school started again and might free up. I know we have a council meeting Tuesday night, but could we do it on Tuesday morning? Or what is this
We have
suggestion?
mediation with AFSCME on
Sorry?
Tuesday. AFSCME mediations Tuesday morning.
Meeting is Tuesday morning, okay. Councilor Beyondich?
Thank you. Do you have an approximate time of how long this meeting would be? Could we set it before the council meeting?
That's a good question. We just have a couple updates you had an opportunity to see, and so now some of the stuff that Public Works wanted, and then the garbage truck. There'll be some updates on the budget for 2023 to review, so I'm game.
30 minutes, is that sufficient or not? Hour?
I'd say an hour.
Okay. Councilor Beyondich?
Is everybody okay if we set it, our council meetings at 5:30, so at 4:30?
It's at 5 o'clock. It's at 5 o'clock.
We
We'll
have,
have a special public hearing at 5 for the VITA.
Would 4 o'clock work?
Rich, is that going to interfere with that mediation? Because Gary and I are on that mediation with you.
It's only till 4 o'clock, so we'd be rolling right for mediation if we go that long.
Should be done by 4? Okay.
okay, so everybody look at the calendar. Council meeting date, which is 7 days from today at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Is that amenable to everybody's schedule? Councilor Bearable? You're good? Councilor Freelieb? Councilor Paulson?
Good.
Councilor Beyondich? Councilor Johnson?
So moved.
Okay, and we will notify Councilor Barnzelli. So 4 o'clock next Tuesday, moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freely to set the budget meeting 4 p.m. on September the 13th at 4 p.m. Oh, is it 13th? 13th, yeah. No, 13th. Yes, 13th. Okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Paulson, you had your light on?
I did, but I just wanted to, we don't have any other items of concern on our agenda, but
No.
so I can set this for the next committee of the whole. I would like to review our credit card policy one more time and discuss specific procedures happening at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Okay,
I
so.
would like to set that probably for the next committee of the whole. And I can send an outline email of some of the things that I'd like to discuss, if that would be helpful.
Sure. Would you please submit it to Pam, and then she'll submit it to the
Will.
rest of us?
Thank you,
And
Mayor.
so you can make that request for Pam moving forward, which is a formal request now, Pam, to add that to the next committee of whole agenda. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Okay, did we vote to go into closed session? Oh, all those, I thought we did. All those in favor on the budget meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Pam. We now in closed session? No, we're closed. There hasn't been a motion in support to close So we ask all those who are in attendance to please, thanks for coming to the committee of the whole meeting. Okay, wait for Gary to get back. We'll get you, we'll get you. Here he is. He found an alternative route. Atta boy, good man. Okay, Britt?